Hi everyone, welcome to this afternoon's Open Creative Space live stream. Here at Learn, we believe that making is what makes us human. We make, therefore we are. This session is for educators or even parents who want to get into making and STEAM activities with their students or children, either online or in the classroom or both. You can follow us at ocs.learnquebec.ca, where we post ideas of activities, links, and different resources for students and educators. So for today's session, we will be exploring cranky contraptions and how we use cranky contraptions to teach different concepts, to get creative, and to make things. I'm going to warn you though, making your first cranky contraption can be very frustrating, but rewarding at the same time. I'm Caroline Buteau, and I'm here with my awesome tinkering colleagues, Chris Colley and Craig Bullitt. They will be doing some demoing for us and sharing some cool tips and tricks to try out with your students or children. So why? Why is one of the questions we ask ourselves every week here at Learn, is why are we so passionate about making? That's for several reasons. Making is playful and inventive for all ages. This is true for children as well as for adults and grown-ups. It allows us to see materials in different ways. You get your hands busy and at work. Material-wise, you'll see we like to model ideas of materials that you have at home and to repurpose recyclable materials in an innovative way. And the making process allows to experiment with the diversity of solutions. So in other words, there's not just one good or best way of doing something and getting to a final result. There are several ways. Last but not least, today's takeaway, I really want you to focus on making learning visible. So tinkering activities are not only a playful and meaningful way of supporting learning, but they allow you to physically see a student's understanding of a concept that's being taught or that's being used in the STEAM activity. So the big question actually, what are cranky contraptions? Cranky contraptions are art that moves. So it's a handmade kinetic sculpture or toy that produces motion using a wire crank. I actually have one with me today. This is my whimsical Elton John. So a cranky contraption will create motion, up, down, side to side, circular, any type of motion really. It's a playful way of exploring motion and mechanics while bringing objects to life. So I love these activities because it's a combination of art and engineering. So here you have my mechanical system, my crank system, and here you have the art piece, and you have Elton John playing the piano. So it was really frustrating to do, but it's really fun, and I learned so many different things. This is a quite simple one. You can do this with your youngest students, but there are also more sophisticated ones, and I wanted to share one with you. This is done by, he's an automata artist in the UK. Unfortunately, he passed away last year, Keith Newstead. Here is a sophisticated example. So don't expect this from your little ones, but this is just an idea of where you can take cranky contraptions. So I'm going to stop there, and I'll send the camera to Chris, who's going to walk you through different materials, tips, tricks, and techniques.
Great. Thank you, Caro. So welcome to our final one of this school year of 2021. We've made it. So we're going to do something kind of playful and whimsical, as Caroline was explaining, and we're really going to look at motion mechanics, right? Or this is the big concept that we're getting at as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of materials, and then I'm going to put one together super fast with you so that you get an idea of exactly how it works. So let me flip over to my document camera so you guys can see, and let's get going. So material-wise, I mean, it's pretty basic. These are like, I use a lot of cardboard. All right, cardboard for the automata is really good to make, and I'll show you one in a minute. But having a good pair of scissors, you're going to need some wire, pliers and a wire cutter. And don't be afraid of these materials. I mean, these are things that kids need to know how to use. And here's a cool little, for punching holes, a hole punch, and I'll show you why we have that as well. And then, I mean, every kid in the world wants to play with this drill. Let me tell you, it's a really powerful drill, and this is really cool for making holes. And let's kind of explore how we are going to do that. So I have my tools. Now, the materials to start off with is we're going to start with the base. And the base is where I'm going to put the crank through. And I'm just going to put a bunch of cardboard together because look at the beautiful holes I have. So I don't even need to drill a hole when I'm using cardboard. Now, if I'm using wood, a wood block, I think one of our colleagues was doing some home renos and we just got a whole bunch of wood blocks from them and I drilled a hole in it. All right. And again, if you're working with the littler kids, like kindergarten, grade 1, you might want to pre-drill the holes. But I mean, these kids can use that drill. I mean, we've seen it happen and they just love it. So, and they're pretty safe once you get an idea of how to use it. So the wood block is another option that you can use for the cranky contraptions. So the first thing I did is I measured some cardboard and I put it to a specific size so that it was nice and handheld. And what I'll do is I'm just gonna give it a little lick of some hot glue. And I could just use white glue as well. There's no reason why you couldn't use either or. And again, getting kids to use tools is important. They need to know how to function with these things for projects in the future. And a little hot glue, I'm telling you, we use them with grade 1s and they're very, very cautious with them if you set them up that way. So there is my base. This is it, a bunch of cardboard put together. Then I have some wire. Okay, and Craig's going to show you some different kinds of wire that you can use, but I'm just using this kind of bendable wire that I found in my shed. No big deal. So what I'm going to do is I need to make kind of a crank with it. And Craig's going to show you a cool jig he has. I'm a little bit more old school and I just bend, right? So once you bend, you're going to get kind of the idea of the crank. So I just made a loop and then I'm just going to fold it over. And I'm ready to go pretty much. There's my crank right there. Okay, and this, as this rotates, it's going to move things up and down. And then I just slide it through. Choose whatever hole you want in your cardboard, and I'm just going to slide the wire through. Again, I've done this activity with kindergarten, grade 1. They're all able to do this, no problem. They love it. So here's my crank. So if I kind of maybe turn this like this so that I get a little bit of a grip on it, and now I can turn and it cranks away. Okay, it's able to rotate. Now, things so that I can attach the wire on are I use these foamies. Okay, and I got these at the dollar store. I mean, they're not expensive. All this material is pretty much recycled. And I just took a little foamy like this, and I'm going to take a pair of scissors here, and I just want to cut it in half, just so it's a little bit smaller. Okay, and so I have a piece of it right here, and I just need to slide it. This is what's going to allow my other wire to be attached and also have motion to it. Now, the next thing is I need to have some kind of follower. Now, a follower just kind of keeps my wire in place so that it doesn't kind of start bending all over the place. And I'm sure you can find these pretty easily. You get them at the doctor's office, or these long, wide popsicle sticks or tongue sticks, I guess. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just paste that, get my glue out again, and I'll just glue it right on top. All right. And then I just stick my, so there we go. I got a cranky contraption underway here. Now I get my trusty, what are these called again? Hole punchers. There we go. And I'm going to punch a hole, kind of aligning it with the lowest part of my string. Okay. And now I can put my wire down through. And as Kevin was saying, we got to teach kids resilience, right? And this is not easy to do. There's going to be a lot of, oohs and ahs, and things are going to fall apart, and it might not work the first time. But I think through kids experimenting with their hands and trying these things out where you have to create, you have to manipulate, right? There's no choice. And see that already things are starting to fall apart. Good thing I have my glue right here, and I'll just douse it with a little bit more. And then I'm going to stick my popsicle stick underneath, okay, on top. And there's the basic structure of a cranky contraption right there in 5 seconds, right? So now I can put whatever I want on the top of here, and it's going to create this upward and downward motion, right? So already it's starting to crank. And look at that, it flew off. I'd probably put a little dab of hot glue right there. So the cranky contraptions, here's one that I made with a fish. And this is about, I was inspired by a fisherman that I had met, or we read a story about, and I wanted to make a little cranky contraption of a guy catching a fish. So there's just that simple crank that we just used. You could also double it up. here I made a bird on top, so I wanted both wings to be able to move, so I just put two cranks on it. That's all. So you just bend the wire a little bit more. Craig's going to show you some amazing techniques for that. Now, the last one I want to show you is more automata-like, all right? And this is kind of, here's a frog, and I kind of made it have some joints here. And underneath, you can see I just have a wooden dowel that as I rotate it, the cam goes up and down and then moves my frog up and down, all right? So that I can get some motion going. So basically the cams are different kinds of shapes of cardboard that I put a dowel through. And as you rotate it, it does all kinds of different things, right? Because you're going to put your stopper right here on top. So you can do all kinds of things. And this is the basic construction of a lot of our mechanical things. So automata is super easy to do. And also the cranky contraption is very easy to do. All of the info you're going to find on OCS. So you'll get some ideas of templates for cams. You'll also see how we put the automata together, and you'll also see the cranky contraptions. I'll send it back over to Caro, and we're going to see some cool examples from Craig.
Thanks, Chris. And as Chris was mentioning, our friends at the Exploratorium in San Francisco, they made this amazing info sheet about cranky contraptions, and you have diagrams and lists of materials and techniques. So this is linked on the OCS blog as well. Thank you for sharing all those materials, Chris. Like he mentioned, this is good for the youngest learners. You could do this with little kids and pre-drill the holes if you'd like, and with the older kids too, and even adults have a ton of fun doing this. So in terms of concepts and curricular connections, we're talking about simple machines, motion, a lot of cause and effect. Obviously, there's the science curriculum, the technological world. There's the design process, construction diagrams, mechanical engineering, material manipulation, manufacturing objects, and techniques for manipulating objects. So it's very rich curriculum-wise. I can't help but mention the art part. As I mentioned, it's a combination of engineering and art. So there's so much you could do art-wise. And also with literacy, storytelling. For example, you could ask your students to tell a story with their contraption. And you'll see I'm a big fan of Keith Newstead, who's the automata expert in the UK. What he does is he'll start out by sketching his art piece or his story. Then he'll come up with the story, and after he'll look at the mechanics. So there's a nice storyboard around that cranky contraption. You could also suggest that your students make a contraption of their pet, their best friend, or a character from a story they read. And you could also ask them to imagine the different joints and how animals move, just like Chris's frog. So you could look at the joints and the biology. An example of that was last night when I was making Elton John. His arms weren't moving so well. So here I added a joint on his shoulder using a pipe cleaner. Could have used a push pin too. And I left this one as it was. This one does not move. And you could see his left arm doesn't move as freely as his right. So there's a lot of concepts you could touch with your students. So let's go see Craig. I know he's been working on some amazing projects this week. Let's go see what he has in store for us.
Thanks, Caro. So let's look at some types of wire, how to bend them, and I'll show you 3 samples of some cranky contraptions that I made. So I'll switch cameras over here. So you can see different types of wire there. I have a coat hanger there that's a little more difficult for small hands to bend. I have some craft wire, which is really nice to work with because I can pretty much cut it with scissors and bend it very easily with my hands. And I'll show you a contraption after where I just used a trombone, I'm forgetting the word for it, a paperclip, sorry. So that something as simple as that, you have different gauges of wire that you can use. And so those are some of the examples. Here you could see what the finished product looks like when it's inside the contraption. That's my crankshaft right there. And I'll just show you here how you might not be able to pre-bend everything. So sometimes you have to start the bend this way. And then to be able to put it in the body of your contraption, if it's already bent, the end piece, you won't be able to get it through. So you might have to be clever in placing it through to take care of that. And this one is a double like Chris showed. So this is using the small craft wire, and you can see it gives me 2 directions of motion. So when this, sorry about that, when this is up, this one's down and vice versa. So you get this up and down thing happening, and I'll show you an example of that after as well. So let me show you how I bend this stuff. I'll keep this wire here. Let me move this stuff over. So this is a jig that I have, and this is a pretty fancy one. I could bend pretty big pieces of wire. So there's slots in there that allow me to put the wire in. And then even for little fingers, it's a lot easier to make a bend. Maybe I'll show you the bend. There you go. Just by pressing is easier than using the needle nose pliers. So I can just create a bend like that. And you can see on this jig, this particular jig, I could actually do half moons there. I can do a triangle, and I can actually move these pins around to provide different configurations depending on how I want to bend this stuff. But I mean, you don't have to go out and get a jig like that. I'll show you another example. This is one I made with leftover stuff lying around the house. So I used some deck screws, a piece of wood, and this is a screw that I put through the back of the piece of wood with a hole in it. And I'll use the craft wire just to give you an example. So to do some of these bends, instead of using the pliers, like Chris was showing, this gives you a little bit more leverage. So I could use the deck screws that are in there. I can put my wire in and do a very quick and simple L. There you go. So you can do some quick bending. And the fun thing about this one, this screw sticking out with the hole, I could then put a piece of wire down in the hole. That becomes my holder. I'm kind of blocking it with my finger. And then I twist around. Again, I'm blocking the motion, but you can see I'm twisting around the screw, make a nice tight circle, and then either with needle nose pliers or just your fingers, I can squeeze those back together, and you can see I have a perfect circle right there. And I did the same thing with the coat hanger, which is a much stronger one. So these are different configurations for shaping the wire, especially if it's difficult for little hands to be able to bend stuff. But you can make this kind of stuff. So a jig's easy enough to create. So let's have a look at some of the contraptions we can make. I'm just going to move some stuff over. Put this one down, and hopefully you can see that one. But so this is pretty simple materials that I used to make this. So this was a paper clip example. I used some cork, I used some cardboard, you could see there, and that's pretty much it. I mean, there's some hot glue in there. I didn't even need to use that. I suppose I could have used tape. And the only reason I needed a long bunch of corks there so that I could demo this on a camera. But I mean, if little people are making this, you could probably get away with just one cork. But you can see that one going up, and I decorated the mountains a little bit. You could see sunrise and sunset kind of thing. So that's pretty simple materials. And what we like to do is I just added kind of a sign or a title. I like to give it a title. And this is the pedagogical piece where your learner is demonstrating what they learned based on what they built, right? So in this case, I was thinking about sunrise and sunset. I was thinking about some vocabulary like solstice and equinox and things like that, the longest day of the year and the shortest day of the year, just to make connections with that. So that's a pretty simple build. Move that one aside, and let's bring in this one. I'll take this off for now. So again, basic material. I used a baking soda box there. I used some pieces of foam like Chris had done before, some hot glue again, and cardboard. And this is a double example. So you'll see two things going up and down. Let me just place this, and maybe I'll let you see the arms moving. So you see the double arms moving there. And then if I scroll up, we could see the moon coming up and the sun coming up. Right, so simulating a day and night, that kind of thing. So there's a little more complex construction. There's two motions happening. I did use coat hangers in there. So the wiring was a little bit more difficult to bend. And like Carol was mentioning, there's frustrating parts, right? Trying to glue it together, and some things don't work and you start again, but that's all part of it. And I'll stick this up here again. We always try and name it and connect it to what we're learning, right? So this will give the student a chance to tell us about it. And so I actually learned a new word here, the diurnal. I didn't know that was a word. I knew about nocturnal animals, and then it turns out there's a term for all the other animals that are not out and about at night. And so then you see some key words appearing there. I have to talk about night and day, and some of the animals I found, the night animals like bats and owls and skunks and raccoons and so on, and then the day animals, including humans. That again makes our pedagogical connection for us. So there's another little example. And then here's one that is a little more complex, but I just want to show you how it could be simple. So this one, it's all the same cranky contraption, right? I have things moving up and down every single time. In this case, I just drew in some grass. It could be that simple, right? This thing is going up and down, and I provided some way to hide it underneath to show that it's jumping up from the grass or coming down from the grass. But with this one, I went a little bit further in the art part, the story that goes with it, all that kind of stuff. And so I'll take the grass away. What I actually tried to do is think about the whole concept of jumping up and down, vertical motion and horizontal motion. And these contraptions don't have to be vertical all the time. It could have been a horizontal one. But in this case, my little bonhomme, I ended up making a trampoline. It's what came to mind when I thought about something moving up and down. I thought about the idea of a trampoline, so I used a little yogurt container and put some elastics in a configuration that kind of looked like a trampoline. So I have this little fella bouncing up and down on a trampoline. And again, a little more complex build, but the main part of it is pretty straightforward. I'll show you the inside of it so you can have a look. So there it is, simple things. In this case, I used a piece of wood and I drilled it like Chris had shown you before. And I actually used an eraser as my my stopper, or my connector. Used just a regular eraser, and it's easy to puncture an eraser with your coat hanger. It presses in nicely. I didn't even need to drill it. But so you can see the motion that's happening under there, kind of neat. But that's kind of the magic that's going on behind the scenes, right? So it's kind of fun to close off that part and leave the mystery. It's kind of fun to have it covered up and let people guess what's going on underneath. It kind of looks more magical, I think, there. And so, as always, we close it off with a title, the idea of putting a title to it, and I indicated in there, again, we're talking about vertical motion in this application. If it was horizontal, I might have done something a little bit different, but you can see how it's a nice finished package. So those are my three examples, and I just want to talk about a little bit is the building part. The reason we're doing that is to bring out creativity and allow choice and allow kids to play and have fun and become autonomous, all that kind of stuff. I'll just move this wire out of the way, because those things are going to engage the students, right? So learners that are using their hands, they're having fun, they're playing, they don't even realize they're learning stuff, but they're engaged in what they're doing. And then the artifact part, if I put this back in here, that actually provides something tangible for us to hold and talk about and express what we've learned, really. And it provides a bit of a display. And I've seen some fun stuff where people will create a gallery walk kind of thing. So a bit of a museum where all of these cranky contraptions could be laid out in the classroom. Or if you're teaching online, it could still work, right? There's no reason why students at home can't build something like this, and then each one after the other, we could share our presentation, hold it up to the camera, and tell our friends about what we've built and describe it and all that kind of stuff. So the artifact provides that tangible piece that we were talking about. And together, so the building process, the fact that we've built something and the fact that we have an artifact, so there's a process and a product. Now we're talking about student voice. We're making connections to subjects, and really this could work in any subject, right? I can't imagine this not working in anything. We can do it in science, math, ELA, FSL, all these kind of things. And we're working on vocabulary. Obviously, the students are expressing to you, they're getting out of their heads and they're articulating vocabulary, the new vocabulary that they're learning. And of course, there's evidence of learning, right? That's where we're able to evaluate during the process, but also with the product at the end. So as we like to say, all those little examples I put out for you. So what we typically say, our team, is that it's hard fun, right? What we're doing, it's not easy stuff, but it's hard fun. And the big and is we're learning at the same time. So back to you, Carol.
Thanks, Greg. And you really took the words out of my mouth, because I was just going to say that I love hearing you talk to your creations, because not only could I see that physical result of your learning, but I could hear your reflections and the questions you asked yourself while creating them. So that was amazing. It actually leads pretty well to my next little parentheses, that one of the ways we connect curriculum to what the students are doing is through reflective questioning and discussion. You don't have to wait until the end of an activity to do this. You could do it throughout the activity one-on-one or as a whole group debrief. And some questions you could ask students with cranky contraptions are: what happens if you add more connectors? What happens if you add more bends in the wire? How does this change your motion? Or what happens if you have more than one character in one single contraption? What does it work? Why or why not? Or can you have more than one contraption with a single crank handle? So there's so many possibilities with cranky contraptions. And keep in mind that STEAM and tinkering activities are iterative. We always mention this. Projects are developed over time through trial and error. You really have to encourage your students to think for themselves, to experiment their ideas, and to solve the problems that occur while they're building and experimenting. So once again, their learning is visible and it's durable. And this whole iterative thinking process also builds confidence in the students for future explorations, which is really key to learning. So 2 tips that I want to finish off with: allow your students to get themselves stuck and to experience problems, and then you could help guide them through reflective questioning to get unstuck. And also, while they are stuck, you could point out the important ideas or concepts that they learned when things didn't go as expected. That's it for this year. It was our last live OCS video. So just a reminder that all of our recordings are on the Learn Quebec YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and to visit our blog, ocs.learnquebec.ca. I just wanted to mention that next Friday, we're going to have our final 1-hour virtual play session. So Friday, May 7th from 2 to 3, join us. There's no specific theme. You could watch a few recordings if you want of our live streams, pick one. Otherwise, we'll have tons of ideas. So you could invite your kids, your friends, your family members to join us online for an hour of kitchen table tinkering. Shout out to our friends at the Exploratorium. You could see all of their info sheets on our blog. Everything is linked. And thank you to Michael for making everything happen, all the camera